Hello and welcome to SoCal's SCBWI's first middle grade author panel, Humor with Heart. I'm Carlene Griffith. I'm a SCBWI member, a volunteer, mother of three, and author of Rose Made a Laden and 10-minute plays for kids of all ages. I'm your host this morning, and I am excited to be here. But before we officially begin, I'd like to introduce my cohort, SCBWI SoCal Chapter Regional Advisor, Tim Burke. Welcome, Tim.
Hello.
Tim is a very enthusiastic and hilarious middle grade author or aspiring author. And overall funny guy. He has been published in Ellery, Queen Mystery, and Alfred Hitchcock's Mystery magazines, which is very exciting. And you can find out more information about him on timburketales.com. But Tim, we are having him as our backup today in case I faint from excitement, because I am so excited. Just kidding. He's here to help with our tech and to be help with our raffle, and also our question and answer portion of today's event. So thank you, Tim, for that. And you made it possible. All of this is possible because of Tim. So thank you.
Thank you, Carlene. And also, just to clarify, we will be raffling off copies of each of the author's books. So stay tuned, and we'll be asking challenging raffle questions in order for you to pop the answer into the chat column, and the first person to answer correctly will be the winner of the book. And we have 6 copies to be given away. So
yes, that is so exciting. And also we'll send you information via your email. So also I want to give a huge shout out to those SoCal chapter committee members that helped us make this possible today. That's Esther Tenenbaum, Ernesto Cisneros, and Beverly Plaz, and Cynthia De La Torre for, they contributed a lot. So we appreciate all their help today. So Tim already told you about the raffle, so I will, let's get started. Yay. For the moment, I'm gonna put Tim in the background, and then I'll bring you back up in a little bit, okay?
Story, my love.
Thank you, Tim. Okay. I don't know about you, but I think there is such a need for humor today. There are so many mixed messages out there, and kids need characters that they can relate to, identify with, and learn from. And our 3 distinguished authors have done that with their humorous middle grade books. And it is my pleasure to introduce our first author, our guest author. She is the author of over 50 children's books, including middle grade series Alien Superstar, Hank Zibser, and Fantastic Mirror, among a couple. And she is a producer of TV and film, the co-founder and executive director of SCBWI. She's the reason we are all here today. So please welcome Lin Oliver. Hello, Lin.
Hi, Carlene. Nice to see you.
It is so good to have you with us today. Thank you for joining us.
Good. I thought I heard a little echo, but I'm good now. You can hear me fine?
I can hear you fine, yes.
Good. All right.
We might have a couple little things like that, so, and I apologize. I will do my best, but it's a new thing we're doing with the live stream, so.
Great. Well, I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to say hello to all the SCBWI Southern California people. You're my community. I'm coming to you from Southern California.
This is your home, and we love that. We love that. So we have you today because you have a new book coming out. You've had several books come out already, but you will be having the 3rd in your Alien Superstar series coming out.
Right.
Hollywood versus the Galaxy, and that comes out in October. Can you tell us a little bit about this series, the Alien Superstar?
Sure, I'm happy to. So these are co-written with Henry Winkler, also known as the Fonz, but not to me. To me, he's my writing partner, Henry. And he and I created a character called Hank Zibser. And we wrote 18 novels about Hank, and then we did a spin-off series called Here's Hank. And Hank was a kid who's dyslexic, and we wanted to write a series about a kid with a learning difference who was funny and smart and not tragic. He was just like 1 in 5 kids in America who have a learning difference. So when that ended, we then wanted to do another series together, and we thought, what is it that we both know? The dyslexia part we knew because Henry is dyslexic, so he brought that. And we thought, well, both of us I've written over 300 episodes of television and produced a lot of episodes. And he, of course, was on Happy Days. So we both know life on a soundstage in Hollywood. And we thought, well, this would be a great setting, because I think it's great to write what you know and write something you're familiar with. But we wanted to make it funny and interesting. So we came up with the idea of, what if an alien came from another planet to Earth, and the place that he landed was in the middle of Universal Studios, which is in itself an alien land. What could be more alien than Hollywood? So that's the concept of the show. It's about a kid who flees a repressive planet and rockets to Earth and lands in the middle of Universal Studios. So you could hear the comedy. It's a comic premise.
Oh, it's hilarious.
It's a fish out of water story. It's a way to comment on our society. So that was the genesis of the idea. So we designed it as a trilogy.
Mhm.
There are 3 books, and the first one came out. It was just called Alien Superstar, and that went on to the New York Times. That was very exciting. And the second one came out last year, and then this October, the third one, which is called Hollywood versus the Galaxy, is coming out, and that ends the series. Then
well, that answers my question. I was going to ask if a 4th one was coming out. So there you have it.
Well, I guess there's always the possibility that it's such a giant hit that they'll just have a 4th one. But the plan was to do 3, because for people in the audience who have written series, it's, that you sort of need to have an arc for your story for the novel, but you also need to have an arc for the series. At what point is it ending? And I'm not going to tell you how this ends, but it resolves our alien story on Earth.
Okay. Because I've read the first book. I haven't had a chance to read the second, but I am excited to do that. And I loved the story. It was so fun. And it's all about being a fish out of water and just not being, identity. It talks about it, it kind of addresses that feeling about who am I and who are these people and how do I fit in and how do I work with them. And I love that. And the premise is hilarious. It's so fun.
Well, I'll just say one thing, because it is sort of the premise of this session this morning, which is it's great to have a comic premise, like a fish out of water, but it's also great to have an underlying premise. And this is about identity. This is about when you look or feel different from everybody else, who are you and how should you be received?
Mm-hmm. Especially in the first book, because he struggles with, well, what should I look like and who should I be? Should I be my alien self or should I be this human self that I have to identify here in Earth, to fit in? So I love that. We'll talk more about that later as we get into our discussions. But now is this the 5th series that you have done with Henry?
No, it's the 3rd series that I've done with Henry. We did the Hank Zipzer World's Best Underachiever.
Okay.
That was 18 novels. And then we did no, actually, you're right. It is the 5th. Oh my gosh. Then we did Here's Hank, which is that character in the 2nd grade, just as he's getting his diagnosis of dyslexia. Mm-hmm. And then we did a series called Ghost Buddy, which I had forgotten about, for Scholastic, which is, again, a fish out of water. It's about a kid who died 100 years ago and is inhabiting the house of the contemporary kid who moves in, and their unlikely friendship, the ghost and the kid. And then I think that's all that I've done with Henry. Then Fantastic Frame, I did on my own. And
okay.
That you could tell that I like sort of high concept stories. So that's about a magical frame that 2 kids can enter, and it takes them into a painting. It's one of my favorite things I've written because it's sort of about art history. So they have adventures inside the great works of art, like Sundays in the Park, the George Seurat. So also a very high concept idea that lends itself to humor. That's sort of what I think my wheelhouse, what I do best.
Oh, and you do it so well. So well, because that one's kind of like the Magic Treehouse series, isn't it? Like,
yeah, there are 5 of those.
Now, do you prefer, I mean, you've done both on your own and then with co-writers as well. Do you find that you just like the balance of both, or do you prefer one or over another?
Well, that's an interesting question. My training, I came out of being a television writer, which is a group process. You sit in a room with other people and you beat out a story together. That part I really like because I'm not a natural with plot.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have other people saying, well, and then what happens? You kind of have to think of something. You can't just say, I'll figure something out. So I really like that part of it. When you collaborate, it's a compromise. You have to, your ears have to match. Mm-hmm. So in the case of writing with Henry, we've done it for so long that I think we have a really wonderful connection. And so I think we up each other's game. Mm-hmm. And that's a great thing. It's a whole different experience to write a novel by yourself. It's much more interior and you can explore themes a little more deeply. So I like that too. If you're, one of the things we all struggle with as writers is if you're a social person, your job description is to be alone. And as a writer, and that makes it hard if you're a social person. So to me, it sort of plays into that part of my personality where I feel like I get to interact closely with someone, which is sort of one of the joys of my life. I like that, hence the SCBWI. I love community. So It sort of satisfies both.
Oh, I know. I love that too. I'm very social, but I also love getting in my head and escaping. Mm-hmm. So you've been very busy. You've been planning something that's coming up this summer, the SCBWI Summer Conference, and that's coming up next month. So you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, this is the 50th anniversary of SCBWI. It was started 50 years ago by me. I know that you're looking at me and saying, how could that possibly be? Seriously. But it is. I started it when I was 22 years old with Steve Musser. And we had our first conference where there were 35 people in attendance. And I think 34 of them were related to me, drummed up all the relatives and friends, and my mother made potato salad. And it was when I look at SCBWI today, I think, wow, we really had humble beginnings. But I'm so proud of the organization, and it's such a life accomplishment for me, and so warming to see the community that has grown up. So this summer will be this is our 50th conference, so it's called the Big 50, and it's from July 29th through August 2nd, and you can read about it on the SCBWI website. It's a huge production. We have over 130 speakers on that many topics. So it's just rapid fire, everything you want or need to know about being inspired to create for children.
Oh, well, I am excited. I'm looking forward to it. I'm already registered. So
good. Okay, great.
Well, thank you for this chat. I'm going to take a minute and I'm going to introduce some of our other guests because I could talk to you all day. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Lynn. I appreciate that. So I'm going to say goodbye to you for a minute and then I will bring you back on in a few moments. Our second panelist is author of Violet and a Pie of Life, and that just recently came out. And she's also authored many other middle grade series and YA books, among them the successful Zeke Meek series, just to name the one. But she's also got The Funny Girl and Silver Pony Ranch and Supernatural Rubber Chicken, which I think is hilarious. And so please welcome Debra Green. Hello, Debra.
Hi.
Hi. We are thrilled to have you. There is a little bit of an echo. Maybe just scoot back a little. I think maybe you might be a little close to the microphone. You want to say hello again? I'm sorry. Let me.
Can you hear me now?
That's perfect. That's much better. Thank you. So we are so excited to have you here today, and you must be thrilled. Your book came out in March, and how has it been since the release?
It's been a little difficult because of, I would love to just have a book party to get everyone together, but I think that's coming soon. I think I can do that soon. But it's really exciting because I haven't had a middle grade standalone novel out in a long time. It was reviewed by all the major reviewers, and I'm always incredibly nervous, about the reviews, but it got good and great reviews when it came out. So, phew. So, yeah, it's very exciting. I've been doing a lot of chapter books for the last, 10 years or so. So that's for a younger audience. So it's really nice to be able to write a novel and just, write with more depth. And just for a little bit older audience that can see more of the nuances than the little kids that read my chapter books. Although I like that also.
Oh, yes, I agree. I like that as well. Sometimes I have a variety. I go picture book. Sometimes I do young adult book. I noticed you did a couple of young adults as well. And which genre do you prefer? You prefer the middle grade, or do you it depends on the mood?
I started off young adult. I did 5 young adult novels with Penguin. And then my kids, and they were pretty racy, I have to say, because I was pretty wild teenager, and I turned out okay. But when my kids got to be teenagers, I never wanted to make my characters racy. I always sided with the mom, which really is not a good idea to base your YA character on the mom. So I stopped writing YA. I like chapter books because you can be really wacky. Little kids will just, supernatural rubber chicken. Okay, I'll buy that. It's a talking rubber chicken that smells bad and can grant wishes. Okay. So that's really fun. But I also like middle grade a lot just because they're longer and you can I tend to write character-driven novels, so you can really spend time with the character and developing that character.
Well, I'm glad you wrote Violet because I loved it. I read it and I shared it with one of my students that I teach. She has trouble reading, and so she identified with your character, and so she loves it now. And I thought that was a great. Yes. I know. I'm sorry. Where is it? I have your book here. There it is, Violet and a Pie of Life. Thank you.
I love the cover they did, so I think it's so cute.
Now, you're so prolific. How do you keep your day job as a lawyer? I don't know how you do that.
I know, I'm exhausted all the time, and I never make enough time for friends and family, and I don't know how I do it. I went back to work 5 years ago, so I was writing more. Although, I was a mom to 3 little kids, which I think is just as hard as working full time. My kids are now grown. So, I barely watch any TV. Maybe this is obvious, I don't spend a lot of time with my beauty routine. So I really I wake up in the morning and I write. I don't look at my email. And it's become this habit where it's almost like going to the spa or something. It's very relaxing and fulfilling for me. So I usually spend the first hour of the day writing, and then I write a lot on the weekends. I really like being a lawyer too. So I feel really happy that I like being a lawyer and I like writing, but I'm also always exhausted.
Well, we're glad that you had the time to join us today. And I'm going to say goodbye to you for a moment, and then I will bring you back on in a little bit. Thank you, Debra. Okay, it's time to introduce our third guest. She is debut author of Lupe Wong Won't Dance, and she's a winner of several awards, including 2020's Pure Belpre Honor Award, Sid Fleischman Award, the Pacific Northwest Booksellers Award, and listed as 2020's Best Book of Youth by the American Library Association. We welcome you, Donna Barba Higuera. Did I say that right?
Higuera, yeah.
Higuera, yes.
Oh, we're all coming on with echoes.
Oh, I know. Back up just a little. I think that's the issue, is that you're just a little too close to the screen. And this is your book, Lupe Wong Won't Dance. It is such a good book. Like, I just enjoyed it. I loved listening to. I listened to the books because I work during the day, so it helps me listen. Like, I listen and work at the same time. But your book is just doing so well. It's just like took off. It's already won 4 awards. Is that right? Or is there 5? Like the Crystal Kite Award or?
No, but the last award that you mentioned, I'm trying to scoot back as far as I can.
No, you're fine.
Is this funny? The last award you mentioned, I hadn't heard of. So, yeah, but it's been a bit of a whirlwind. I've been really surprised at the reception that Lupe has received. And I think a lot of it is it's her. She's such this vibrant character that, and a lot of people go, oh, is she based on you? No. Lupe's far more interesting than I am, and way funnier. But yeah, I think that in a year where there's been a lot of things that are not so funny and kids need to laugh, I think it just hit the right spot at the right time.
Yeah. I think that was the Sid Fleischman Award that I meant.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it is a great book, and it addresses a lot of cool things, and we're going to get into that later. So I don't want to give it all away right now. But do you have any more coming? You have more books coming out this year.
I do, but I don't want to tell because I think it's a raffle question later.
It is. It definitely is. But it's okay because it's going to be later, so they'll have to remember.
Oh, okay. So if they're paying attention, they will know.
Exactly.
So the first book that's coming out in about a month is El Cucuy is Scared Too, and this comes out with Abrams Kids. It is a book about El Cucuy, which is essentially, for lack of a better term, the Mexican boogeyman. But many Latin American countries have their own version. There's El Cuco, El Coco, La Cuca, and they all kind of have this similar theme where it's very specific. Like the American boogeyman is very esoteric. Like we don't really know what he looks like, but we're all afraid of this, faceless entity. But El Cucuy is hairy, has claws. And so when I was writing this book, it was off a writing prompt, which was take the thing that scared you the most as a child and make it adorable. And so my grandmother used to say, go to bed or El Cucuy will come get you, or eat your dinner, or El Cucuy will come get you. And so I just took this concept and wrote about a boy named Ramon who is nervous about starting a new school, making new friends. And suddenly El Cucuy, who lives in his room and in his closet, is less scary. So if you take the thing that scares you the most and there's something else that's even scarier, it makes you realize, how scary those things are for children and how afraid they are of starting school and meeting new friends and maybe worried about the way they speak or dress. And so this book helps Ramon digest those feelings along with El Cucuy. And so the scary thing suddenly becomes his friend. And so for me, it was probably a way for me to deal with some of my childhood feelings of being afraid of something, and not just this entity of El Cucuy, but the other things that I think universally that we're afraid of. And then I have a book coming out in August with Levin Querido, which was the same publisher as Lupe Wong Won't Dance. And I don't have any advanced reading copies yet, but this is a printout of the cover. I know we're getting a little glare, but it's called The Last Cuentista. And it is a middle grade sci-fi. So it is very different than Lupe Wong Won't Dance, which is a contemporary humor. And I think my wheelhouse typically veers toward sci-fi and fantasy. I'm like of, the Star Trek Next Generation.
Oh, I love Star Trek.
And so I just grew up with that and Twilight Zone, and and it was just those things always kind of reel me back in a little bit. And this book is about it's a little more mature, and it's upper middle grade, I would say, or lower YA, and the themes are a little bit more serious, and it's about a girl who's leaving Earth, and Earth is going to be destroyed. She gets off planet with her parents because they're scientists, and they want her to be a scientist, but she wants to be a storyteller like her grandmother. And I think as writers, we can't help but draw from our own life experience. And so this book is, again, it's a lot about my relationship with my grandmother and how I thought of, if there were this earth-ending event, what would I take with me? And for me, for sure, it would be the memories of my grandmother, who had a huge influence in my life, and the stories she told, and how we take the stories of our ancestors and those who came before us, and we kind of make them our own. And in this book, that's what the character Petra does. She kind of takes these stories and spins them, and she's taking them into the future. So,
well, that is exciting. I'm looking forward to that. That's cool. Thank you for that. I love all kinds of books, but sci-fi is one of my favorites too. So, and
then Lupe Wong Won't Dance, Lupe Wong No Baila will be coming out in October, which that makes me probably the most emotional, is knowing that kids will be able to read that book in Spanish and or read it side by side with Lupe Wong Won't Dance to help learn language. And it's just, that's huge to me. And I love that Living Garrido is doing that with their books. They're really being proactive and getting them translated very quickly.
Oh, yes, you should be very proud of that accomplishment. We all are proud of you. All your brothers and sisters at SCBWI, I love you for that. Thank you. I'm so glad for your success. Okay, so we are going to do one of our raffles right now, really fast. So I'm going to bring Tim back on, and I'll bring you back on in a second, okay?
Okay.
All right, Tim, let's get this started.
All right, so we're going to be raffling off 6 copies total throughout the morning, but we're going to start by offering a copy of Lin Oliver's book, Alien Superstar. And the way we're going to run this is I'm going to ask a question, and whoever the first person is to type the correct answer into the comments thing. So if you're on YouTube, there'll be a place to type in your comments. And if you're on our Facebook OC meetup page, you have to be a member already to view that, because it's a super secret private page or group. But if you're watching from there, you could also type in your answer. So the question is this, and I'm looking at the comments thing to see who's going to give us the answer. What is the title of Lin Oliver's next book out in October? What is the title of Lin Oliver's next book out in October? And we're looking for the answer in the comments. And I guess we'll just we'll keep observing. And shall I go on to the next one, do you think? I don't see.
Yeah.
I'm only seeing a few.
Yeah, I know. I don't know what's going on.
If have they been turned off or something, the comments?
Nope. The comments are on. I can see that.
Okay. So I see, there we go. Up.
Donna
Donna came through, right?
Yep.
All right. So, Carlene, can you put up my name and the
absolutely.
email address on there?
Yes.
So Donna, you're going to email, don't put it in the chat so that all the crazy stalkers out there will have it. We want you to put your private, if you could put just the name that I put, Carlene, just
okay.
just the normal name. Forget the
Oh, okay.
Tim Burke, SoCal, because that's got the email address there.
Right.
Okay. So, waiting for that to show up. But anyway, Donna, you're going to email as soon as Carlene puts it up there.
You gotta give me 1 second, Tim. I wasn't ready for that.
Yeah, that's okay. And you just leave that up. You don't have to put other info on there. So Donna, email your mail address, your snail mail address to me, and we'll send out a copy to you. Question number 2. This is for a copy of Donna's book. So the question, and again, in the chat, just type your answer. How many books does Donna have coming out this year? And we'll see what the answer is. There we go. Okay, thanks. Yeah. There's the email address you winners are going to put.
Chris.
Yeah, and so Chris, we're going to ask you to clarify when you say 3. Well, actually, yes, you're right. So we're gonna count. And someone is listed as Facebook user. So in the future, if you want to continue to contribute, you're going to need to change your name there instead of Facebook user, because I have no clue who that is. But Chris, you get it. So please, you can see my email address there, socalra@sbwi.org. Send me your, email me your snail mail address, and we'll send a copy out to you. So that's it for raffle 1. 1 copy of Lynn's book and 1 copy of Donna's going out to some winners. Okay, Carlene.
Thank you so much. All right. I am going to bring our ladies back on. And here we go. Hello. Okay. Just got to get rid of some of this extra stuff so that we can see faces. Here we go. Yes. I'm trying to juggle too many things at once, I believe. All righty. So thank you for doing that. So humor is such a great stress reliever and so needed today with all of the chaos, especially for middle grade readers. Wouldn't you guys agree? You can just, Lynn, what do you think about that?
Well, I think that all of us as a society for the last year and a half have been through a traumatic experience, nothing short of global trauma. And imagine how it is if you're an 8-year-old. You don't really know what a virus is. You don't know what a pandemic is. You suddenly, all the things that you enjoyed in life are sort of taken away from you. You're in a house with just your family. Your school is suspended. I mean, for a global issue that you can't actually get your head around. So I think that books of all kinds, by the way, I think drama is also a great sort of stress reliever because you can put yourself in another world. But when you can make a kid laugh, it's the best feeling in the world. I've had the experience where parents come up to me because my books especially get popular with reluctant readers, which I think happens. Debra mentioned that too. With a lot of kids who have trouble reading, the humorous subject sort of pulls them in. And the parent will say, I was walking down the hall and I heard my kid laughing in their room, and I looked in and they were reading one of your books. And that is the most significant compliment that you can give. So when you think of this last year, of all the secret terrors that kids must be holding, trying to understand what we've been through, if we make them laugh, I think we've done really not just a service, but a global service.
Oh, I absolutely agree. Yes, my kids need humor right now so badly, being locked up in their rooms and distance learning, and it's been a challenge for a lot of them, all ages, not just middle grade, but all ages, teenagers too. But regarding books, there's different types of humor. There's like physical comedy, situational comedy, little one-liners, and being funny and writing funny isn't necessarily the same thing. So what's the difference between character humor and plot humor? Lynn, we'll go with you, and then if anyone else has a comment.
Well, to me, it's all the difference in the world. So, first of all, I think the rule is you have to write what makes you laugh, and that requires a little bit of introspection. For me, jokes don't make me laugh. They make me nervous, actually, because I'm kind of waiting for the punchline. And I think, what if I miss it? What if it's not funny? What do I do? So I'm not a big joke person. People tell me I'm funny, but I've never told a joke in my life. Never. Oh, well, maybe to my 2-year-old granddaughter, I say, knock, knock, who's there? But other than orange, you glad you're not a banana? That's my idea of a joke. But I don't tell jokes. So I like character humor the best. I don't particularly love physical comedy. It doesn't make me laugh. When you look at things that people think are hilarious, a Jim Carrey movie or something, it doesn't make me laugh. I love character humor and observational humor, where people are sort of talking about our life. And I love some kind of word humor. I don't love puns. I'm allergic to puns, actually. So you have to do in your book what makes you laugh. So my books are funny from characters. Mm-hmm. So the definition of that for me is your character has an approach to life which is bent, which is skewed in some way. And so when that character talks or observes, it's crooked. It's not the way the rest of us see it. And I think that's kind of a wonderful thing. Plot humor is straight up comic invention, and you could do that. But it's like, what would happen next that is funny? Mm-hmm. And so the character humor is what might you think of next, or what situation might you find yourself in as that character, which is funny. And I think they're very different skills.
Like plot would be like a alien landing in the middle of Universal Studios.
That's straight up comic invention. And then you say, all right, well, what would happen if that alien got stuck on the dinosaur ride and got stuck on the tail of the dinosaur? Well, you can imagine what that's going to do. But and so we include that is funny, but the real humor comes from an alien observing culture in contemporary Los Angeles, which is a much funnier thing. Here's an example from the Hank Zipser books. So the principal of the school is named Principal Love, and he's bombastic. He's one of those principals that talks a lot, but you're not really sure what he's saying. So everything that he says makes the kids laugh because they recognize that character in their life. The adult over talker, the one, everything turns into like a long sort of preachy story that doesn't quite have a point. Mm-hmm. And so they can laugh about that because they recognize it, number one. And I think something that kids love is to bring down authority figures, particularly ones that are bombastic or kind of full of themselves. And so it kind of accomplishes both of those through character. Whereas he also comes into a room that's been flooded and steps on a floating tuna fish sandwich. So there's that, there's that sort of physical slapstick stuff to give them a laugh. But the essential humor comes from tearing down the walls of this big bombastic adult character, which I think kids love.
No, I agree. Now, Debra, your humor, you actually took classes, didn't you, for comedy so that you could kind of learn how to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I did stand up for a few years and I took classes. And I have to say, I was a better writer of stand-up comedy than a performer. But I did learn a lot because when you do stand-up, really the goal is to get to the funny faster. And so I've learned how to kind of make a joke work on different levels, just have a really short straight line, and then, riff on that and get a lot of jokes out of that. I do like to use character-driven humor, but I also like to use plot-driven humor. I feel like, especially for reluctant readers, it's good to just, they want to see things happen. So if you have a lot inside your character's head, I also write for reluctant readers, so they might not have as much patience with that. So one thing I did in Violet and the Pie of Life is, and I agree with Lynn, I usually make my characters really naive with kind of a weird view of the world, and the humor comes out of that. So I think the first line of the book is, she's very good at math. So her first line is, my parents could solve all their problems if only they applied simple math. So she's so wrong. And she keeps trying to do these equations and graphs and charts and, to solve all the problems in her personal life. So that's kind of the character driven. But then I also wanted to give the kids something to look forward to. So she's in a school play, and I made the dress rehearsal just a complete disaster. She's in The Wizard of Oz, and the Dorothy clicks her heels 3 times, and her shoe flies out into the audience and almost hits somebody. So I like that character driven, but I also like the plot driven also. It's fun to do that combo.
Now, Donna, in your book, Lupe's humor is a lot of her little thoughts, and she has comebacks on things, and situational as well. Do you how do you address humor in your book?
Definitely more character driven. Lupe's voice is really distinct, and the idea for this story is a very universal thing where kids come home and they don't want to square dance in PE. And a lot of people say, well, they don't still do that. Oh yeah, they do. And about 50% of schools. And my daughter came home and was upset about having to square dance in PE. And she was shy and she didn't want to dance with a boy. And she wanted to dance with her friend Gracie. And none of this was going to happen for her. And so it came through this character. And I said, okay, how I felt that way. If we all feel this way, I'm going to write this character who sticks up for herself and says, not only do I not want to square dance at PE, I'm going to figure out a way to get rid of it. And so I just started writing this character and threw her in a PE class where she finds out that day she's going to have to square dance. So the plot wise, it's not a really complicated plot. It's just very voice and character driven, where this character and she kind of is a little bit of my family's really funny. We laugh so much around the dinner table, just everything is funny. And so Lupe kind of was this mixed version of my children and how they would deal with this. And so yeah, it's just normal situational in everyday life, but even how she deals with her brother and her mother and her friends, she says the wrong thing all the time. And but she's a complicated character, but I don't think she realizes how funny she is. I think her thought process, I think a lot of people don't realize, Lynn was saying something. I don't think Lynn realizes how funny she is. And I think that a lot of people don't. They have these really vibrant, big voices, and they don't know they have that. And that's what I tried to give Lupe.
Well, you did a really good job with that. I love that. She's hilarious. I just enjoyed all 3 of your stories are so fun. And they also have a lot of heart to them as well. And I know that, how do you balance the difference between humor and heart? You all 3 have very special messages that you have in your book. Debra's addresses divorce, Lynn's addresses identity, and Donna's addresses cultural sensitivity and things like that, and just belonging and feeling there's lots of messages. Would you Would you guys touch on those just a little bit and share how you balance the difference between humor and messages so that one's not overpowering versus the other? Donna, let's start with you.
Yeah, I can definitely speak to that. I think that in Lupe Wong Won't Dance, there's loss of her father. She's dealing with the death of a parent. She's dealing with things with gender biases and racism. And I think that when we're writing for children, if we speak to serious themes constantly, it's stressful. And I think that balancing those with humor allows them to be more palatable and for kids to digest certain things, and not necessarily from a writing standpoint of being preachy, but just putting it out there so kids can ponder these things. But it's easier for them to ponder these themes that are a little bit more serious if there's balance with some humor mixed in, so that if you just completely pound over the head a theme that feels serious or negative, then the reader doesn't have time to really digest it and think about how it makes them feel. And I think humor is a great balance for that. All of us wrote these books before we knew there was going to be a pandemic, before we knew that kids were going to be at home. And we, obviously, for Lin and Debra have been writing a long time as well. But for Lupe, I didn't know that it was going to come out in this year where people really needed to laugh. And so I think our books have really helped kids in a year where they can laugh a little bit, but still in a safe place. Books are safe, and they can sit in their room and they can read these books and think about their emotions and feelings. And even if those emotions and feelings are serious, they can cry for a second and then they can laugh.
Yeah, I agree. Lin, what would you say about that?
I think what Donna said was just brilliant, because to me, the perfect moment in reading is when you cry and laugh at the same time. Because if you're just laughing, that's great, but the moment passes. But when you have some pathos in it, when you have real psychological truth, that's when things are the funniest. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's partly the heart comes from writing about issues that Donna was talking about in her book, which I love that book so much. She's struggling with a majority culture that she doesn't feel part of, which is a big issue, but she's doing it with her own sort of twisted mentality. What I think in the Alien Superstar series is we're dealing with specific issues. He flees his planet because there's a repressive leader. And more than anything, he wants to sing and dance and act. And so underneath all that is the notion. I was writing it during a time when we did have what I consider to be a repressive leader. And the first thing that happens in a repressive government is the arts go away, because the arts are dangerous. Artists are subversive. So that's the underpinning of the book. And who are you when you go to another culture, and how do you fit in, and how much is you? Those are all pretty serious ideas. But the real heart of it is the psychological issue, which is he feels different. He feels sad. He feels lonely. He feels isolated. He doesn't know how to be a friend. And so at those moments, which are like the real psychological truth moments, that's when you get the funny combined with the tear, which is I remember when I have three children they're not children anymore, they're grown men, but when my oldest was leaving for college, he was all packed and he was going from California to New York, and he was my most beloved person in the world, and here he is leaving 3,000 miles away. And he went in his room to go to bed, and I thought, this is unbearably tender. I can't believe it. So I knocked on his door and pushed open the door, and I said, "Can I say something to you?" And he said, "Whatever you're going to say, Don't say it. I thought, then we both burst out laughing and crying at the same time, because it was a moment that was so full of sort of tenderness, really the end of childhood, the end of your family home. But it was so much that you couldn't really be serious about it, or it would just be maudlin, So when you can get those moments that are really full of emotion, but you can break it with laughter.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that as a writer, that's yeah, that's
a sweet spot. I agree. Now, Debra, yours deals with divorce. So there's a lot of heartache that your character is going through, but it's also funny. Like she's sitting next to a dumpster and she's, dealing with the drama of her dad and her mom and like that loss. And so I can see how you blend the situation with the comedy at the same time.
Yeah, I think sometimes that's really hard because I think, it might be easier to just play it straight, right? But when you're also trying to make them laugh a little at the same time when they're dealing with trauma, I think I just wish award givers would appreciate humor writers, because I do think we have a little bit more to do than someone who's just writing straight drama. And I have to say, I love the Henry Zipster book and Lupe Won't Dance, Won't Dance, yeah. And I think a lot of that is the authenticity of the characters. I mean, I really believed in them. I felt for them. I loved them. And so I was rooting for them, but I was also laughing, maybe not at them, but at the situations they found themselves in. And I will say, like the dumpster scene, I think sometimes, that was the heaviest scene in the book. I don't want to give too much away, but, she keeps thinking her dad's going to come back and everything's going to be great. And this is a scene, and she's standing outside in the dumpster, and near a dumpster, and her dad is, basically telling her he's never coming back. That was really hard, but I did try to put a little humor in. Her friends come out looking for her, and she's hiding behind the dumpster. She says, "They'll never find me." It's her crush, the boy she has a crush on. "They'll never find me," and of course they find her. So I put a little humor, but I think sometimes you just have to have a scene where you play it straight for a while, because you can't laugh through some terrible phone call where your life is, everything you've been working for falls apart. So I think it's okay sometimes in a humorous book to have a scene that doesn't have a lot of laughs.
Right. Well, Donna, you do that when Lupe puts her head to the mirror or the pictures of her dad. Like oh my goodness, I cried. I was like, oh, because I'm like, it just touched my heart that she misses her daddy so much. And like, you guys nail it. You guys just nail it so well. And you do it so naturally. And I just, we all appreciate that.
Carly,
yes.
If I could just interrupt for a minute, I want to go off Debra's point about awards for humor. This is an SCBWI moment. So the SCBWI created many years ago the Sid Fleischman Award, which is the only award that I know of that is specifically designed for a humorous children's book. Donna won it last year for Lupe Wong, because I think she makes a really good point. You look at the Newberries and the Caldecotts and the Princes, and they're all, it's very hard to win one of those awards if you're writing humor. It's somehow seen as less than, which I don't think it is. Who was it, the famous actor who said, dying is easy, comedy is hard? And also those books are so meaningful to kids. Those are the ones they put in their backpack and get dog-eared because they come back to them over and over. So the Sid Fleischman Award was created, and so many great writers like Donna, it's the first writer to win it was Lisa Yee, who has written an incredible body of work that's funny but meaningful. So
Well, thank you for that. We definitely, and Donna, congratulations
Oh,
for
thank
winning
you.
that. We have quite a lot of award winners in SCWI, and it's exciting to be among them. Now, I have a question. So, middle grade humor, like, what is acceptable and what is not acceptable? Because there are some things that you like, especially sensitivity when with like humor. You don't want to be a bully, but you have to address bullyism in there. And so, like, you have to ask yourself, look, where is the line? Where do we put the line? So, what do you guys think? How do you feel about what's appropriate and what's not appropriate to put in a middle grade book? Like, as far as swearing and like sexuality and like kissing, and what do you guys think? Who would like to address that?
I have a comment on that just because I had an issue with Lupe where, of course, when you're writing, you don't know anyone's, when I was writing it, I didn't have an agent. I didn't know that anybody was ever going to read this book. And so I was like, okay, Lupe's going to try to get rid of square dancing. She's going to Google Cotton Eye Joe and figure out what is the background of this. And she finds out, and this is really what it is that they thought Cotton Eye Joe probably had chlamydia. What a lot of people don't know, I'm also an eye doctor. So chlamydia, your eye gets whited over when you get chlamydia in the eye. And they thought that Cotton Eye Joe was this gentleman who made his rounds with the ladies. So I wrote this scene where Lupe Googles it. I wrote about, how she and her friend Andy they misspell chlamydia because they're watching it on YouTube. And then they go to Google it and they realize that it's a sexually transmitted disease. So when the books sold and we were going through edits, originally it was when Arthur was still with Scholastic, and they came back and go, okay, do we want to revise that scene? So I wrote a chlamydia-free version and I titled it Chlamydia-Free. And they came back and they said it was not nearly as funny. And then they decided to keep it and say, we're going to fight for that chlamydia. And so, yay, chlamydia. So it stayed, but it was such a truthful scene of what a middle schooler would find. And I feel like if we had kind of watered it down with something else, he had a corneal ulcer, it just wasn't nearly as funny. And so I am so happy that they left that. And yeah, it was on the line of, I thought I would hear more kickback from it by now, but I've heard nothing. I've had nobody complain about the chlamydia. So I'm very happy it's still there. But it kind of walks that line. But you have to realize, as far as sexual content, it's tricky because kids, at least in my area, start taking, it's called Flash. It's like human sexuality starting in, I think, 4th and 5th grade. And so, they're hearing these things at school. They're hearing them on the bus. And books, again, are a safe place for us to discuss those things in a way that kids can feel safe about what they're reading. But the other parts of it, I don't know if I'm the one to speak to it, because I'm always like, there are things that make me a little cringy as a parent. And I'm like, gosh, is it the right time for my child to be exposed to this? Would I have wanted my child to read the chlamydia scene? I don't know. But I mean,
Mom, what does chlamydia mean?
Exactly, yes.
And you say that in the book. You're like, we don't even know what this means. Like, and I love that.
And I actually tried it because I said, okay, how would a kid think that chlamydia was spelled? K-L-A-M. And I started to type it in K-L-A-M into Google, and immediately the proper spelling of chlamydia popped up after, I think, K-L-A-M. And I'm like, that's how quickly a child would be able to, find it and look it up online.
Well, good job. What about
Thanks.
Something I think that you have to break down middle grade a little bit, because I think there are sort of subgenres within middle grade. So there's kind of early middle grade, and then there's, which is more like the 8 to 10. Mm-hmm. There's the traditional middle grade is more like 10 to 12. And then Donna, you would consider Lupe Long?
Yeah, it's a little bit more upper middle grade, because there are some themes that are right heavier.
Right. So I think that if you kind of imagine your target reader, you know, an 8-year-old is really different from a 12-year-old. And so I think that helps you make decisions. I think they should be made by the author, you know, in terms of what you feel comfortable with. And I don't think you should edit. To me, one of the things that I'm always really aware of in terms of content is kindness and bullying, because there's a lot of humor and a lot of natural kid humor that derives from anger and aggression. And to me, that's not okay. For in my books, between the covers of what I do, that's not okay. So bullies don't turn out well. The laughs don't come as a result of someone being bullied or being called a name, or, you know, I'm really conscious of that, because I think that we can send a very subtle message. It's the characters that you love and respect who are funny legitimately, not at someone else's expense, not by tearing someone else down or by hurting their feelings or by calling a name. So for me, I don't do that just because I don't do that. When my kids were growing up, I'll just say it, there was a lot of swearing in our house. You know, I don't care about language particularly, but I did care. I said, you can say a word. Okay, I'm going to say a word. So if you're offended, turn off your Zoom. I mean, you can say shit when you drop something, but you can't call someone a shit face. You know, one is anger, and the other is, you know, against the universe, and that's fine because we all have it. But the other is cruel. So to me, that's my definition. I don't care about language so much, and I mean, I write for sort of straight up middle grade, you know, the 8 to 11-year-old. You know, my sweet spot is like a 10-year-old. So there isn't a lot of sexuality and there's a lot of swearing, but there might be language that plenty of parents think is inappropriate. And that's their right. But to me, I use it, but it's never turned against an innocent character. Because I don't think that's funny. It makes me
it's not. It's not. And I don't think. What about you, Deborah? What do you think? Because I know that you write for a little bit older of the middle grade area.
Yeah, I've kind of write what I want, and then let my agent or my editor say, you know, you got to tone that down a little. I feel like if I'm always looking over my shoulder and worrying about, you know, what's going to offend someone, I think it kind of waters down the writing. And, you know, every one of my books, someone's had some kind of problem with it. So I don't think you can please everyone. But I really respect my editor and my agent, because they know the marketplace a lot better than I do. And I want to just be able to be as creative as possible. But I agree, I don't like mean humor at all. I don't like listening to like stand-up comedians who are denigrating people. I don't find that funny. So and especially in a children's book, I would completely draw the line there. I would say my first book was a YA novel, and it's a little bit like the chlamydia story. It came out in 2005, and after the advanced reading copies went out, Barnes and Noble said they wouldn't stock it. I had one paragraph that they objected to, and it was my first book. And I will say my publisher left it up to me, but I ended up taking out. It had already been set and everything, so I had to replace that paragraph with the paragraph the same type of that. But you know what? It got stocked in all the Barnes and Nobles, and at that point, Amazon. I don't even know if Amazon was there, so you could either go to Borders or Barnes and Noble to get the book. So I think there is a lot of pressure on authors to, you know, not go too far. But I sort of let the gatekeepers figure that out, and I just kind of write what I want.
Now, do you think that, like, I was thinking about this the other day, like, because I read a YA book and I was like, oh my goodness, I didn't know what was in this book. Had I known, maybe I wouldn't have read it myself. So do you think that the market is is hitting the right target age, or do you think that maybe, because like middle grade is considered 10 to 14 and YA is considered 14 to 18. And of course, we know that readers like to read kids that are older than them. And so that's part of why it's marked. But the tweens seem to be falling out of the mix, you know, because they're a little bit of YA and they're a little bit of MG. So I'm just wondering, how do we fit them in with this? Because middle grade covers such a span. You know what I mean? It's like what's funny to a 10-year-old isn't always funny to a 14-year-old. And I know that. I have a 13-year-old in my house and a 10-year-old, and they're completely opposite when it comes to things that they find funny. So what do you think? I mean, do you think that there's a change coming and that we need one?
I'm not sure for me that I agree with those definitions. You know, to me, middle grade is 8 to 12.
Okay.
And YA is 13 and up, you know, and then within those, there are shadings, you know. The picture books are sort of 3-day, you know, you're reading, the assumption is you're reading with an adult. And then at that 7-8-year-old age, you're doing chapter books, maybe 9. And then you're off and running. Then you're reading middle grade. So, but I do think that it falls into more categories. So I think the tweens are in that 11 to 12. Kids read up, not just in wanting the character to be a little older, but there's this thing, I think psychologists refer to it as age compression.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like 8 is the new 12, you know. So they're dealing with, you know, I have a granddaughter who's 8, she's going to turn 9, and talking to her is like talking to a teenager, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So you see that that there's the reading level, and then there's the psychological level. Those kids are watching YouTube, and so they're ready for more mature subjects. And that's one thing I think that we're all navigating is kind of the definition of childhood, because it disappears really quickly. And so what we used to consider middle grade, you know, I mean, is it hard to get a 4th grader to read Hatchet? I don't know, because it's just such a great adventure story. Or are they wanting to read about kids who are YouTube influencers, you know? So I think that in a way, we're kind of we're part of the gatekeepers to help determine what's appropriate for each age. So for me, there's the younger middle grade, which is sort of 8 to 10. And then the tweens are sort of 10 and up. And then young adult, that up to 18, I mean, that's new adult, and that's a whole other category. So YA is sort of what the 13, 14, 15-year-olds are reading, and that's way advanced in terms of theme and language, and, you know, I don't think there are many restrictions.
No, they're not, which is what surprises me, because it falls under children's literature, and some things I don't think are appropriate in YA that should be considered for children's literatures. But
well, that's not the current thinking. You know, YA literature is very, very, very edgy, and YA kids are very, very, very edgy. You know, so. I don't know, you know, I see you looking kind of sad about that, but I mean, if you look at, you know, Beverly Cleary used to write YA literature. She wrote 15. Oh my God, now you'd be 7 and reading that. You know, it's not, you know, our society standards have changed.
They have changed. I guess as a parent, I'm like, oh, I want to keep my kids little, you know, I don't want them to be exposed to everything. But you're right. With the culture and the influence of TikTok and YouTube and the memes, our kids are being exposed to more. And they also like these trends that are coming in the markets. How do you think that's affecting our humor? Do we see a lot of books having to do with TikTok, celebrities, and things like that? Or should we be careful about dating ourselves with those cultural influences? Because yeah.
I think that, like anything else, there are trends and things. And I think that there are kids who are not into TikTok or what have you. But I think that if we write to fads and trends and things like that, the work won't be timeless. I think it's better to write things that all kids know universally, and the book will stand the test of time. I think by the time you write something about TikTok, it'll be gone. And so if we're writing to those things specifically, there really is a huge sector of the population who isn't on TikTok as children. They're, and they don't care about TikTok. And so I'm not saying that there are tons of kids who do, but I think if we write to that in 5 years, the book, it just won't matter, because kids will go, oh, I remember that TikTok thing. I mean, if we look back and we say, oh, my MySpace page, what's MySpace? So I think we have to be cautious about writing to technology and trends and things like that.
Yeah, that's what I had heard, but it's like, where is our future going? Is everything becoming sci-fi? We need to consider what the computer is such a part of our relationship. Our phones are such a part of our community now. Like what we're doing today, it's all online. And even though when the pandemic ends and we go back to working, I think there's still going to be a lot of online workers and people working from home. And
well, I think generalizations like computers and phones, like in Debra's book, there's a lot of texting. That's timeless. That's going to be, for a very long time. She emails, when she can't get a hold of her father one way, I'm giving away spoilers. She's like, I'm going to try this. And those things are not going anywhere. But I think if we speak to very specifics like companies and things like that, it will be dated eventually.
I agree.
I think there's something else too, which is we're adults writing for kids. Mm-hmm. And so we are not inside the kid culture, as it's pointed out to me at every moment of my day. If I say, I have a millennial son, and if I say something that I think is sort of hip, he says, you don't want to be saying that. So nothing is more offensive than trying to insert yourself into a culture that you don't really understand. And so we're all very careful of it with own voices, but teenage is an own voice too. So if you're writing about if your main character is a TikTok influencer, you had best be on TikTok. You'd better really know about that, or you're gonna date yourself, not only because TikTok may go away, but because you're 40 and they're 14. And I think kids can sniff out that kind of inauthenticity in like a nanosecond, and they're allergic. They're flat out allergic to it. So it's really important to stay in your lane, mm-hmm. And to educate yourself about your lane and write authentically from your lived experience and from your tone and point of view. And it's really unattractive to be an adult imitating a teen.
We just got a funny comment. It says, and I'm going to put it up there, from Efren, do you know Ernesto Cisneros? Uh-huh. He says, perhaps kids should be publishing books instead. Just saying. I think that's a great comment.
Well, look, Ernesto, I just want to say, Ernesto has written an amazing novel, and thank goodness it's him and it's his voice. And so that's great. Kids do write novels. It's called talking on the phone and texting. They have plenty of means of communication, including written communication, So what we're doing is something that hopefully has a little more training and subtext, and ear. So it's important to do, but we're not trying to imitate them. We're trying to harness our voice and our values and communicate that.
Right. And Debra, you had a comment? I'm sorry.
I was just going to say that, just that I've been working on Zoom all day. I'm not back in my office yet. And it's nice to just pick up a book at the end of the day. And I think kids might be the same way. They're emailing their friends or texting their friends, or, and maybe, they've been on Zoom at school all day. It might be nice to just sit on the couch with a book, something low tech.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it. We're running out of time. We got to get to one of our raffles. So I'm going to turn the time over to Tim, and I'm going to add him here and then let him go.
Okay, everybody. We're going to raffle off a copy, another copy of Lin's book, and Debra's. So let's start with Lin. We have a question for the Lin book. Besides Henry Winkler, who else has Lin co-written a novel with? And again, you want to put your comment in. First person to get the answer correct in the comments. Besides Henry Winkler, who else has Lin co-written a novel with? And Lin, you're excluded from this contest. I'm sorry, but
just so you know, viewers, you need to allow StreamYard the ability to. You need to give them allowances so that your comments can be shown. So just make sure that you guys do that when you make your comments. But it looks like we have one here.
So Lin, Stephen Mooser, have you co-written with him? I think you. That was not the answer we had anticipated.
That is an incorrect answer.
Yeah, maybe grocery lists, but that doesn't count, right? All right. And her husband, no, Ixnay, right?
Oh, never. Oh my gosh, that would be divorce.
Yeah.
Instant divorce.
It's getting warmer. You're definitely getting warmer with the family idea.
That's right. That's right.
That's our next panel, co-writing with your husband and divorce.
I'll give you a hint. I spoke about him.
Okay, yes. Francesca. That's correct. Excellent. All right, so Francesca, you can email me your snail mail address, and we'll ship that off to you.
Theo,
all right.
Right?
I'm sorry?
Her son's name is Theo.
Theo, that's my oldest son.
Yeah, that's the one you wrote with. Is that correct?
We wrote 2 books together called Soundbender, which were kind of science fiction.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to raffle off a copy of Debra's book now, Violet and the Pie of Life. Here is our thrilling question. Debra's books have been translated into which of the following languages? 2 of these are false and 1 is correct. Czech, Farsi, Romanian. Which of these 3 languages is one of the languages that her books have been translated into? And Debra, that's very impressive. It's pretty cool.
I have 2 that country.
Okay,
Okay, we're not getting any feed here.
Yeah, and I'm giving, I'll give the choices again. Czech, as in Czechoslovakia, Farsi, or Romanian.
Pam Carthen.
All right, so Pam has an answer. Do we have any other answers before? Before I announce whether Pam is correct or not? Waiting for you to jump into the ring.
Everyone's scared. They don't want to put the wrong answer.
Right. Yeah, really.
Romanian. That's what, is that correct? Or
here we go. Farsi. I hope, because I want to read the book.
What's the answer, Tim?
Well, I guess we'll give the answer. Okay. Spoiler alert. It is Czech.
Somebody type that in fast.
So no one has, yeah, exactly. Whoever the fastest typist is at this point now.
Maybe the question was too hard. Oh no.
Yeah. It was. I think the answer choices were pretty challenging. Debra, you get to keep your book, apparently.
Well, Debra, do you have a question that maybe we can use for?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
let's see, what play is Violet and the Pie of Life? What play does Violet do? How about that?
Oh, that's a good one.
That's
That's a great one.
I did mention it. If you were
We
paying
did.
attention.
All right, waiting for those comments to come in.
Okay, remember, for you viewers, you have to give StreamYard permission. Oh, there we
There
go.
we go, Chris.
Yes.
Wizard of Oz. Very good.
Okay.
All right, wonderful. Thank you so much, Tim. Well, we are going to open it up for our viewers to actually ask questions now with our Q&A section. So, and Tim is going to help with that. So, we are going to let you guys ask your questions. So go ahead and put them in your comments in the comment section. And remember, you have to give StreamYard permission, whether through Facebook or YouTube, so that you can get those comments up here. But we would love to hear what you have to ask. So.
And Carlene, can you coach people really quickly on how to do that? They might not be familiar with how to give permission to sidebar. So let's say they're watching YouTube. What do they do?
Okay, give me 1 second and I will do that. They
All right.
have to go to steamyard.com/Facebook and then access their Facebook name and picture, and it says accept. They have to accept it.
Or /YouTube, right?
Yes, steamyard.com/Facebook and then just say, or YouTube. It could
Yeah,
be
and probably-
steamyard.com.
Most people seem to be doing YouTube. So /YouTube and then,
Yeah.
okay. And then apparently there'll be some way to give permission.
Yeah, it seems like it's only Facebook that's having the issue. So,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Well, anyway, we have a question from Mimi T. Oh, wait. No, it's just about winning the other book. Yeah. Sorry, that's not a question for the authors. We'll answer that later. But are there any? Yes. I'm sorry. Maybe. No, Francesca was ahead of you, Mimi. So I'm sorry. She is the one that's getting the copy of the book. Carlene, do you want to throw a question out while we're waiting for them to show up in comments?
Absolutely. So how did you get your first book deal? That's something that a lot of us want to know about. Okay, Donna.
I have a great answer.
Let's hear what you have to say, Donna.
So I was at an SCBWI conference in Portland, and I was at, oh gosh, Lynn, you're going to have to help. Oh, it was Vanessa.
We were at a hotel.
Yes, we were at a hotel.
bar.
And I was listening to the keynote, which was Vanessa Brantley Newton. And Lynn had come and sat next to me at the table, and she turned around to introduce herself. And I was like weepy after listening to Vanessa speak. And Lynn was asking me and introduced herself and was asking about my history with SCBWI. And I had just got my first agent. Or not first agent, but a new agent. So I was very proud of myself. And Lynn said, "Oh, did you meet her through SCBWI?" And then I felt horrible because I had to say, no, I actually queried her, and that's how it happened. Immediately after chatting with Lynn, I went into the next room to a round table where it was a first pages read with an editor. And I was assigned with this young, bright-faced editor from Arthur A. Levine Books at Scholastic. His name's Nick Thomas. And I read the first page of Lupe Wong. I was not even going to bring that book that day. My husband, who's also a writer, said, "Why would you not bring the book that you're working on? Why bring this new project?" So I went to the office at the hotel, printed out the first page of Lupe Wong and brought it. And I read it to Nick. And at the end of this first pages, he said, "Hey, so where are you in this process?" And I said, "Oh, my agent's getting ready to start sending the book out on submission." And by the time I got out to my car and we were getting ready to drive back to Seattle from Portland, my agent had sent me an email and she goes, "What the heck is going on in Portland?" And she goes, "I just got this email from Nick Thomas and he wants an exclusive on your book." So she sent him Lupe Wong. He read it on the flight back to New York. This was a Sunday night. By Tuesday, I think Arthur had read it as well. And like by Wednesday, it was going to acquisitions. So it absolutely, you know, when people go, oh, it's just luck. Luck is absolutely when preparation meets opportunity. And it was just one of those times where I was ready to go, but SCBWI and being at that conference and reading it to Nick at that table, it would not have happened that way. And so everything about the process, if you know, being with the right editor who was there, just everything about it came about through SCBWI. And I know that sounds like an SCBWI plug, and it is, but you know, I've been with the organization for a long time, but it was just this one moment where it happened. And so that's how Lupe got acquired.
That is amazing. What a good story.
And we all celebrated that. You know, there are really thousands of those stories in SCBWI, and it's not SCBWI is nonprofit. It's not a plug for SCBWI. It's a plug for preparation, for learning your craft, and then for participating. You know, it's very hard to take your work, which makes you so vulnerable, and put it out there for people to comment on. It takes a lot of bravery, you know, to attend a round table, or to join a critique group, or to hear feedback on your work. You know, it's difficult, but it's really part of the process. And Donna was ready. You know, it was ready. We all remember that weekend because you know, it was spectacular. You heard the title and you thought, yes. You saw Nick Thomas. You knew what he was looking for, and you thought yes. And then Donna had been writing for a while, and your husband is a writer, and it was clearly part of their life to become writers and become better writers. So it all converged, not accidentally, and it's fortuitous, but it's with preparation.
And I will say, yeah, for me, it was like, and I know, Donna, I'm sure you worked really hard on the book and you revised a lot, but it does sound a little fairy tale-ish. For me, it was just plain hard work and revision after revision. You know, it took me a while to find an agent, and then, you know, my book kept getting rejected by publishers, and I kept revising and revising. And it actually went up to acquisitions. I did a big revision with Simon & Schuster, and then it got rejected. So for me, there's no fairy tale at all, but it actually did really well. I mean, it's sold in 3 languages, and, you know, it was successful. But getting that first book deal, it was really just nothing but hard work. And I was a complete novice. It was the first novel I ever wrote. I didn't know. When Lin mentioned the character arc, I had no idea what an arc was until some editor said, you know, you need more of an arc. And I kind of nodded. And then I went back and spent the whole summer like figuring out what an arc is and trying to get one into my book. So, but it was, you know, all that work really paid off.
Carlene, we're getting close to the end of the 10:30. Do we want to end with one more question, or
it's up to you, ladies. One more question, okay?
Sure.
Authors, do you turn into pumpkin if we hit 10:30 and release you back into the wild?
I definitely do.
Okay, so let's end with this one. Do you infuse humor into your first drafts, or do you go back and add in layers as you revise different drafts?
Well, I can tell you what I do, which is that second plan sounds really dangerous to me, because humor is organic to me, and going back in to say, I'm going to funny this up a little, no. But there is a thing, you know, I come from television writing. There is a thing called punch up, which is what happens on every television show, that you essentially write a sitcom script, and then you go back in and punch it up after you hear the actors read it. So for me, here's I actually have a piece of advice here, that humor comes from specificity. General comments and general sentences are not nearly as funny as those that have been worked out specifically. So, and specificity comes from hard work, from careful attention to every word. So an example might be in our Hank Zipser books, we've talked about the principal Love. So he has a mole on his face that moves when he talks. That's a little bit funny, but then we said he has a mole on his face that looks like the Statue of Liberty without the torch. And when he talks, it looks like the Statue of Liberty is doing the hula. All right, that's a much funnier description, and that comes from spending time. You can't just say, "Oh, you have a mole on your face." That's not funny. So I think that when you're doing humor, for me, you have to kind of slow yourself down a little bit and not just pop out a draft, but pop out a draft that is with the intention of being funny. And that means you pay attention to language, you pay attention to specific details, to specific words and rhythms that have the sound of funny. So I do that all at the same time. And then I do go back and do sort of a punch up, but it's not to infuse humor. It's to take the humor that's there and it's like sharpening your pencil.
Deborah, do you want to add that? And then Donna?
Well, I pretty much agree with Lynn, although my first drafts, it's usually just to get the plot down and then I go back. So yeah, I feel like you need to start with a kind of a funny voice or a good voice. So if you don't have that, that's going to be really hard to inject later on. But I do try to punch it up, like Lynn said, on another drafts.
And John.
I don't think I can say it any better than they did, other than the voice kind of it takes over. And I do what Lynn says, going back and looking for word choice and things that are funnier, because some words are just funnier than others, and you just insert those. But I let the characters and the voice in the first draft. There's no way you can write something funny in a second draft. It just doesn't work that way.
When I was working in television, I sat in a lot of writers' rooms with very great comedy writers, and they all had rules that were peculiar. Like one guy always used to say, "K's are funny." Pickle is funny. He'd say, "Weed whacker is funny," because, so maybe they are, Donna. When you go back and people think he would say pantyhose is hilarious. And I would think, well, I'm not quite sure why, but look at Tim, he's laughing. So, you have to do what's funny. A lot of it is what's funny to your ear or rhythm or something that jolts. And that's really individual. It's the fun part. By the way, I have an announcement to make, which you're going to be extremely excited about. Becky Smith said that for the raffle, she said one of my collaborators was Tommy DePaula. And she's right. So in addition to so I'm sending you another book to send to Becky Smith.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Lynn.
Correct answer.
So Becky, if you can make sure you email me your snail mail address so that we make sure you get that. And congratulations. So maybe time to raffle the last two books off.
Yes, definitely.
So these are copies of Lynn's book. So the first question is, and again, put this in the chat, please. What is the full name of the main character in Lynn's Alien Superstar series? What is the full name of the main character in Lynn's Alien Superstar series? See who's read them.
So who's awake out there?
It's very edge of seat kind of thing here, waiting to see the answer.
I know.
And
I know it, but I won't tell.
Alien or human form?
That's actually a good question.
Okay.
We'll take whatever comes up, I think, at this point.
I forgot.
Buddy. Buddy is good, but it's not the
Yeah,
full name.
Not the full name, but
Lynn.
shall I,
think
while
this is new.
we're waiting for people to do that, shall I do the final question as well?
Yes.
We'll have 2 raffle questions going on. Final question for our last copy, which is again of Lynn's book.
But it's signed by Henry Winkler, which is really exciting.
Good point.
Lynn
Yeah.
provided that as well. Thank you, Lynn, for doing all that. And your publicist is providing that for us.
Yeah, very generous of them. So thank you. What job did Lynn have before she started writing children's books?
I know the answer too.
What job did Lynn have before she started writing children's books?
Okay. I don't know what's going. Okay, because I know that it's all set up for.
Yeah, we maybe people don't have the side yard permission thing going.
Yeah.
Ernesto's getting there.
Chris.
Yeah, Chris. Boy, Chris is cleaning up here. I wonder if we want to allow somebody else to kind of get in there, but yeah, let's leave it. Chris, if you don't mind, since you've won about 8,000 copies so far, how about if we give Pam a chance to take it? So Pam, email, you can see on my name here, the SoCal RA, email your snail mail address and we'll give you a copy of that. And
which is a funny story because Lynn, you were a teacher and you said on your website that it was better that you weren't a teacher.
I was a tremendous failure as a teacher. I'll just tell you what happened. So on my first day of teaching, I walked into the class. I was a big liberal. I was sort of a hippie liberal. And I said, it was a high school class. And I said, we're all here to learn together. And if this isn't something you want to do, if you're not here to learn, you don't have to be here. And all 40 kids got up and walked out. It took me the rest of the semester to say, you have to be here or I'm sending you to the principal's office. So I had zero credibility as a teacher.
Well, we're glad that you're a school, like a children's writer instead. So thank you, ladies. This has been wonderful. I mean, we have just had such a blast. And again, if you want a book, make sure that you email Tim at socal-ra@scbwi. And we are just so grateful to you guys. Our next SoCal author panel is on paranormal subject, and it's going to be featuring Marlene Perez, who authored the Dead is the New Black and the Afterlife series, and that will be in July on the 6th at 6 p.m. And we're thrilled and excited about that. And then coming in July, we also have the SCBWI Summer Conference, the Big 5-0. That's July 29th through August 2nd. And make sure that you go on the website and register for that, because there's lots of fun things that are going to be happening with that.
And Carlene, I'm just going to jump in as you mentioned how fabulous the experience was for you this morning to your writer friends who missed it. Let them know that it's being recorded, and so they can view it. And I believe they just go to the same YouTube channel is where you can see it.
Exactly.
So it'll be posted. I'm not sure how the timing works on that, but it will be maybe tomorrow, let's say, just to play it safe.
Yeah, just give it 24 hours for it to download and everything. So. Yeah. So
we are so grateful to all of you for your talent. First of all, thank you for sharing your writing with us, and today for sharing your experience and hard-won wisdom and great stories and a big shout out to Carlene for she has done a lot of the hard work putting this together. Ernesto Cisneros also inspired us to even try this side yard thing, and it worked out pretty well. I think it was. We'll just keep expanding so that we're broadcasting straight into people's heads in the future. I'm thinking positively here. Take off the aluminum foil caps and let's go. All right. So I believe that's it, right, Carlene? Are we?
That is it. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much for inviting us.
Yeah.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
The big 5-0, everyone.
Thank you.
All right. I'm going to.
And Carlene, we need to stay, right? So that we don't,
yes.
we don't lose the.
All right, I'm going to put up the banner now. Thank you, everybody.